Our next guest is the first Turkish scholar to acknowledge the Armenian genocide. He has been harassed, threatened, and has risked his freedom and his life for the cause. His only weapon is the truth and endless appetite for justice. I welcome Professor Taner Akcam.
Thank you so much. Good evening. Actually, I don't have much to say, and I regret this evening that I cannot understand Armenian. I'm sure that the previous speakers, they made really excellent speeches and laid the ground for everything, for Edwin, for Hrant, and I'm really thankful to them. Today we have gathered here in order to go very precious and meaningful prize to remember our beloved Edwin. What I have to say about Edwin is something that we already know, actually. You may find redundant and unnecessary, but it needs to be said. There are certain people who appear in the spotlight. They appear before us and they capture our interest and become the center of attention. But we have no way of knowing just how little or how much they accomplish away from the limelight. There are other persons who remain in the background, but without whom not a single thing can get done. They are the heart and backbone of their community. And they are almost in every undertaking of that community's activity. In my country, we have an expression, sessiz ve derinden giderler, those who move silently and deeply. With the mastery of an ant, they succeed in doing even the job that seems impossible for others. It is a great comfort for us to know that such people actually exist. And when they are absent, they leave a huge hole in our lives, in our labors, one that is nearly impossible to fill. Edwin was such a person. I met Edwin for the first time in 1999. I had come to Los Angeles with the screening of the documentary Wall of Silence, a story about Vahakın Dadrian and myself. At the time, you, the Armenians of Istanbul, had also organized a meeting. Edwin was one of the organizers of that meeting, and I observed him constantly running around. Upon seeing him, always moving, always working, I made a request of him. One that, 2 decades later today, still causes me shame and embarrassment when I think about it. I didn't know a single word English at that time. During my time in LA, a number of journalists wanted to interview me. I asked Edwin whether he could perhaps translate the preface of my then recently published work, İnsan Hakları ve Ermeni Sorunu, The Human Rights and Armenian Question. And I wanted to give this translation to the journalists. I graciously added that I would understand if he didn't have the time. And so that you understand just what I was asking to him. The preface was 40 pages long, and Edwin did it in one night. Foregoing sleep and working till dawnlight, I still remember my surprise and elation when he placed it in my hands the next morning. As you probably know, I have received a number of awards in California from organizations such as the Armenian Bar Association and the Organization of Istanbul Armenians, and so on and so forth. And the person who was behind all these and for making this happen was Edwin. He organized all this, and it may have been me receiving the prize, but it was Edwin who stand behind the scene made this happen. Edwin was not merely an activist. He was a voracious reader and a person with a vast storehouse of knowledge. I learned from Edwin most of what I know about the role and place of American legal system on the subject of genocide recognition. Indeed, on the question of recognition of the Armenian genocide by Congress and President, its after effects and the next step that should be taken, I never put pen to page without first discussing the matter with Edwin and seeking his advice. In this regard, he was convinced that the American legal system would play a decisive role. Before the Promise Armenian Institute was founded, I will reveal a secret to you, they contacted me, Promise Institute, in 2019, even towards the end of 2018, early 19. They contacted me and told me that they intended to include Armenian genocide studies into their programs, and they were open to hear my suggestion. I was very touched, and I very much wanted to collaborate with Promise Institute, and the person that I immediately called was Edwin. At that point, Biden's recognition of Armenian genocide was not yet on the horizon. In April 2002, Edwin and I planned to organize a conference on the Armenian genocide and the American legal system. The Promise Institute was excited and they loved the idea. But then came COVID and all bets were off. After that, Edwin fell ill. So he was the person in 2019 that I want to come to California, and he was so excited, and we were working together. Edwin worked in so many different fields and on such a wide variety of topics that I simply cannot imagine a single person taking his place. It thus falls upon us, all of us, to take up the mantle and continue his work, if we don't want his labors to be in vain. In that way, we will honor his legacy. If we all commit ourselves to taking up just one Edwin's many labors, to helping fulfill but one of his visions, we can push forward the monumental work that still lies before us. What I see, the task that has fallen to me is to eventually make the conference that Edwin dreamed, of which we dreamed together, a reality, and to do this conference in his honor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Akcam.